Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a subject to you that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and that is justification, with emphasis on the scientific process. Justification. I feel like we're not talking about justification enough in general. People in the media, common dialogue, I don't hear about it anymore. I used to hear about it long time ago. Could just be my experience, but justification is pretty important. It's connected to ethics, it's connected to morality, it's connected to covering your ass, if you pardon the expression. That's really the main reason to do it, and that's not going to be the centerpiece of this video, but there will be something very connected to that in just a moment. Justification covers your ass, as I said. It's kind of like planning ahead, where you're addressing problems and questions before they arise, if for no other reason. Justification has been swept aside in general by people who have a hard time with agreements, by people who are challenged with understanding the idea of morality and ethics. There's been a lot of rhetoric that I have heard actually about rejecting the idea of morality out of hand because it's been communicated so badly, mainly by churches and whatnot. But morality, I'm not going to dive into that in this video, but I've talked about it in other videos. It's the unspoken perhaps agreement that it's objectively good to support health and happiness, especially of members of your own community, to be humane, and I don't think that needs explanation. But still, many people are confused by it. Ethics is, practice in business. You could describe it as being a moral practice, moral consciousness within all of your processes, if they are ethical. I think that's a fair description or definition of it. And justification is connected by including these principles in your plans. Not cutting corners, so to speak. Having constraints when necessary, so as not to cut corners and cut through living flesh sometimes, literally or figuratively, in your processes. Now, this brings me to a segue to a video I recently watched. I like to comment on other people's videos. I'm going to name somebody. I don't think she's going to be vulnerable to this video. I'm not really trying to attack her, but I am going to say something critical of it. Judy Fan is a talented woman who, as far as I know, is a student at Stanford University in the field of psychology, and I don't know specifically which branch. I wouldn't want to misspeak, but she's doing some advanced research connected to AI and has publicly released some dissertations, including findings from projects and experiments that have gone on for years. I want to comment on a couple of things about her videos in connection with ethics and justification, like I just said. Not that I've seen her do anything unethical, but there is an attitude among modern scientists that ethics are a secondary concern, that it's more interesting to satisfy our curiosity as scientists than to ask and answer the question of should we? Should we really needs to be the first question. I mean, after you envision a plan or a goal or some kind of hypothesis, as they say, the immediate next question must be, before you do any kind of research, is it justifiable? Should this even be done? Or should it remain in the universe of the hypothetical? I don't believe that thought crimes should be a thing. I believe that, if nothing else, the mind is a springboard or a soundboard to explore, to test things that you wouldn't want to do in reality, among other things. But justification in the case of neurological research or psychological research is no less important than any kind of medical research or research or business involving human beings. Consenting or not, there are limits. And I will touch on a specific aspect of Judy Fan's research. That is, she has a lot of questions, and that's great. Curiosity is applaudable, commendable. I think she's looking for answers by taking things apart. A lot of people seem to fall into this trap. They're tempted to dissect things until the answers are forthcoming. And when the answers are a product of the whole system, I don't think that she's oblivious to this, but I'm going to repeat this for other people who may be watching. When the answers and the results of the findings are a product of what's called an emergent property, no amount of dissection or deconstruction will answer those questions. I'm going to say that again in a slightly different way. Dissecting something, reducing it, disassembling it, cannot really answer questions about things that come out of the way in which it is organized when it is put together. So I've noticed a theme or a central subject to Judy's research, and that is questions surrounding symbolism and why certain things are different, like words. I heard her specifically ask about words. So I feel like I might actually have the answer to that one. I'm going to just say it. I hope that it doesn't invalidate any work that she's done, but words are no different is the first answer I have. Her question specifically was, why are words different than, say, other images or pictures or symbols? And I don't believe they are. I think that people recognize things either by their sound or their shape, their visual shape, but by their shape nonetheless. We pair things together. We pair ideas, pair concepts. We remember one thing means something else because we associate them, we pair them. And this is a product of consciousness, right? Well, memory and consciousness. And I think taking apart the actual neurochemistry, the neurophysiology, is never going to yield results. It's never going to explain how these things work. You can just dive deeper and deeper, but what you're observing is an emergent property again, something that is more than the sum of its parts. I'll say that again, something that is more than the sum of its parts. You're not going to find the answers in any component of the brain or in the cells or in the chemicals, but the results when they all come together and they're working together. It's a product of the way in which it is organized. Anyway, ethics are hugely important, and I'm sensing in Miss Fan's dissertations that ethics, while maybe a concern, are seldom even mentioned or appear to be connected to her work. And I don't want to say that she's being unethical. I want to say that again. I cannot overemphasize that. I'm not charging her or blaming her for something. I'm just saying, as research scientists, especially when you're involving other people, test subjects and data, personal information, there has to be at least an acknowledgement, I think. If you ask me, for me to be comfortable, I'll speak for myself, for me to be comfortable listening to someone describe their findings, I need to know that they're at least aware of what ethics are, especially when they're digging in like that. And the last thing I want to say, wow, I'm at 8.5 minutes. Last thing I want to say about this is ethics, while great to mention in dissertations, should probably be accompanied by a point. I don't mean to say that her work is pointless, but there's an attitude also among scientists that I've seen, research scientists or students of science, that they believe that the entire scientific process must be unbiased. The process itself, yes. Delivery of the findings has to have a point. I feel like many dissertations like Judy's have, they're kind of just a dumping of data. We're just going to dump these raw measurements. Good luck, have fun. It's not interesting. I mean, that's not a crime. It's just, I feel like she's wasting her time if there's no point at the end of it. There has to be some kind of sales pitch, if you'll forgive the expression. So why is this interesting? Why is it relevant? How is it useful? Like any kind of writing, your conclusions, your findings is a story you're telling us involving science. And I don't want to just, hear an analysis of the characters. I want to hear a story. why do I care about this? God bless her, though. I mean, I feel like this person in particular is extra challenged because of her aggressive approaches in the field, in schools, and I've already seen comments and attitudes from people towards her that are semi-hostile, if not outright hostile. And there's kind of a over 10 minutes already. There's a way to go with the grain or against the grain, and especially when you're a minority or challenged for other reasons, it's helpful to pick your battles. And I think that she probably knows that too, but maybe it's easier said than done sometimes. I don't know. I'm tired of giving people advice, I guess. But there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, as they say, to her videos, and I think to her research, and people like Judy. So I've reached out to her a couple times, and I haven't gotten any responses. So I'm making this video, I guess, and I hope that it's not objectionable to anybody. If you have questions or comments, please reach out to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.